you all see
Okay,
me and hear me?
we can see you. Hi.
Oh, hi.
Hi, I'm Kristen Rizika. Nice to meet you.
Meet you too. Thanks
Well,
for
virtually.
visit your school.
This is in our school library right now, and these are our sixth grade and seventh grade kids from two classes that are here to talk with you today.
Okay.
So they have some questions, but first I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell them a little bit about yourself as an author, and raise your hand if you've read Buzzkill. So some of them have, and others haven't. So I don't want you to spoil it for them, but we want to keep them in suspense. They want to know what you're doing now too. So I'll give you a couple minutes to do that.
That sounds good. Thank you. Okay, so I'm Beth Fantaskey, and I am an author of middle grade and young adult novels, which means that I write novels for audiences of readers who are 9 up through 18, although older people read my books too. Here, I'll just show you a couple of my books that I've written. This is Jessica's Guide to Dating on the Dark Side, and this was my first book. This was the sequel to that, Jessica Rules the Dark Side. And I have one called Jekyll Loves Hyde that I don't have with me right now. But the Jessica books have gone around the world. They've been translated into a lot of languages. This is the Italian version called Promised Vampires. And this is Isabel Feeney, Star Reporter, and that's my latest novel. That came out last May, and it'll come out in paperback soon. I write all my books for Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. And of course, you know Buzzkill. I don't know, which edition do you have? Which one looks more familiar to you? The yellow one?
The one with the girl's face.
With the girl's face. Okay. I started out writing for teenagers and writing paranormal romances about vampires and monsters and things like that. And I guess it was my fourth book that was a paranormal romance. And my editor said, "Oh, you don't really seem like you're into this. You seem like you're kind of bored with the whole paranormal thing." And I said, "You know what? That's true, because it was fun to write them, but they weren't as near and dear to my heart as Buzzkill." And so she said, "Why don't you write whatever book you dream of writing?" And I took a couple months and I thought about that, and I thought, what do I really love writing and reading? And I started thinking about all the mystery novels that I read as a kid, especially the Nancy Drew novels. Does anybody still read Nancy Drew? Can you raise a hand if you've ever read a Nancy Drew novel? A couple of you have. Yeah, well, I must have read 40, maybe 50 of them when I was a kid. I think everyone that ever came out. And one day I'm walking on the treadmill and I'm trying to come up with the project of my dreams. And I started thinking about just something set in a high school that's really fun and light and a mystery novel. And what would happen if this girl, who's kind of a slacker student, but a good student, in spite of herself, stumbled upon the body of her high school's despised football coach. And I just started taking it from there. And I wrote the book, and it turned out to be Buzzkill. And I sent it to my editor, and she said, "Wow, you can tell that this is really, your heart is in this book." And then I sort of went back and I realized that all my books are actually mystery novels. Even if they're paranormal romances, they always had a mystery at heart. And so that's what I've done since. Isabel Feeney is a mystery novel for kids who are like 9, 10, 11. But like I said, a lot of adults really like this book too. And my next books that I'm working on, it's a series of 3 mystery novels for adults, and they're called Death by Chocolate Lab, Dial Me Out for Murder, and St. Bernards and Sinners. And they're just kind of sweet, funny mystery novels. They're called cozy novels because there's not a lot of blood or gore. They're very friendly, happy, funny novels. So, and I'm working on a novel for people your age too, but that's kind of still kind of private. I haven't come up with I'm not ready to talk about that one yet. So, what kind of questions do you have for me? Is my
Okay.
dog in the picture there?
We saw somebody peeking up out of the corner.
My dog is very worried because this is out of the normal, and so she's lying here on the pile of books, and she's like, "Why? Why is this happening? Why are people in this room?" So, Daisy, can you sit up? Can you sit up?
Oh.
So, what kind of questions do you have for me?
What inspired you to write the book Buzzkill?
Um, Sort of like I said, it's drawn from my love of mystery novels and the fact that I can't seem to stop writing mystery novels. And one thing that I wanted to add was that those of a couple of you who have read the Nancy Drew books, you probably know that Nancy Drew is perfect. She rides around in a convertible with her perfect boyfriend, and her hair is always perfect, and she always says the right thing, and she always does the right thing. And as much as I loved the books growing up, not that perfect person. You know, I didn't have the perfect hair. I didn't have a great car or anything. I was just kind of a typical teenager. And I wanted to write a mystery novel for kids who weren't perfect. And Millie is not a perfect hero. And so that was the other thing that inspired me, was to create this girl who is really competent and can solve this mystery, and she's super smart, but she doesn't look like a supermodel, and she doesn't have a great car. She rides around in her best friend's beat up old car with the roll down windows that don't work. And she's just kind of my answer to, well, you don't have to be perfect. Who's next?
How long did it take to publish your first book?
That was really a strange story, and it all happened super fast. I came up with this idea for this novel about a girl who is adopted from Romania, and she doesn't know that her real birth family is vampire royalty until this guy shows up on her doorstep and says that she is supposed to marry him, and they are going to unite two rival vampire clans. And I wrote like 3 chapters of it, and I thought, this is never going to get published. I've never had a novel published. And so I sent it to an agent, and an agent is a person who sells your book then to a publisher. And she got back to me in like 2 days and said, send me the rest of this book. And I had nothing more written, but I didn't want to miss this opportunity. And I said, sure, just give me 2 days to get the book in perfect shape, and I'll send it to you. And I sent my family away. It was over a weekend. And I wrote the entire book in 2 days. And within like 2 weeks, she had sold it. And it all happened so fast. You know, you hear of people who spend years writing novels and trying to get them sold. But I think part of it was that I had been a professional writer for 20 years, writing for magazines and newspapers and practicing writing that way, that it just gave me this sort of base to write a novel on. But when it happened, it was super fast. Who's next?
Um, did you like to write stories when you were younger?
You know, I did like to write stories when I was younger, but I didn't ever really think that I would be a writer until I graduated from college, and I was just looking for a job, and I heard through a friend that this public relations agency was looking for a speech writer. And I applied, and the man who would become my boss said, this is what you are meant to do. You are meant to write. And I did not know that until then. It was just something I kind of liked, but it wasn't a lifelong dream of mine. And I'm very impressed now that I will get emails from students your age who already know what they want to do, and they want to write novels, they want to write fiction, and some of them have already written novels, complete novels, and they send them to me, and some of them are very good. And I think, wow, what a head start I would have had if I had known that I wanted to be a novelist way back then, because I didn't write my first novel until I was 40. So and some of you are writing novels at your age, and some of them are getting published. So.
What was your favorite book to write so far?
Excuse me? I'm sorry, I missed that.
What was your favorite book to write so far?
I would say that Buzzkill was my favorite, just because the project was so close to my heart, and I had fun writing that every day. I would count it as a good day if I laughed like 5 or 6 times out loud, you know. So I had a lot of fun writing that novel. And my second favorite to write was this book, Jessica's Guide to Dating on the Dark Side, just because it has a very arrogant, snarky vampire prince in it, and the character was really fun to write. But writing about Chase and Millie, that was fun every day. And that was a quick book to write too. I think I got so excited about it when I came up with it that it all kind of came together in my head really fast, and I bet it only took me 2 months to write the first draft. You have really good questions. Thank you.
What does your family think about you being an author?
I think in a way they're proud of me, but it takes up a lot of my time, and it's just what I do every day. I go into my office, and so to them it's just kind of, well, that's my mom's job. I have 3 kids, and they're ages 9, 12, and 13. And my 12-year-old Julia has read all my books, and she loves them. So she's probably a little more impressed than the other 2. Hope, my youngest, is a little bit young to read them. And my other daughter, Paige, just hasn't read them yet. She's into the Hunger Games and dystopian, and I'm on her list, but I haven't made the cut yet. So to them, it's just like, that's what mom does, and it takes a lot of her time. And when they were in preschool, they had to draw a picture of our family, or my oldest daughter, Paige, had to draw a picture of our family. And she drew like all the family together, and then mom was at my desk, like working. So it's really a full-time job. Anybody else? Oh, here comes some.
Have any of your books happened in real life, like your family, for example?
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that one either.
Have any of your books happened in real life, like your family, for example?
Oops, I just kicked my thing. None of my books have taken place in real life, but they're all set where I live, rural Pennsylvania. And this book is actually sort of rooted in my real life, although it's about vampires, because my daughters are all adopted from China, and so we don't know anything about their birth parents. And so this book sort of came out of this idea of, what if your birth parents were really different? And I just kept taking that farther and farther. What if they were royalty? Well, what if they were vampire royalty? So oddly enough, my most fantastic, unreal book is the one that's most closely rooted in my real life. But other than that, I don't have any scenes or anything that I really draw from real life.
Probably a good thing, actually.
Who was your favorite author and why?
I have a couple favorite authors. One of them is Charles Dickens. I love everything by Charles Dickens, and I spaced the books out over years reading them, because I knew once they were done, there were no more. So like Pickwick Papers is probably my favorite book. I love anything by Dumas, like The Count of Monte Cristo. Um, I guess I really love classic literature, Pride and Prejudice, anything by Jane Austen, but I also love the Harry Potter books, um, Martha Grimes, who is a mystery novelist. Um, wow, there are just so many wonderful books out there that it's hard for me to pick favorite authors and favorite books. Um, I haven't read the Twilight series yet, but that's next on my list. I want to see what that's all about.
It's okay. Come on. So there's.
What was the hardest things you had to do as a writer and yourself?
I think one of the hardest things you have to do as a writer is first is to start a book, because that's always the hardest thing when it's just this blank page and you think, wow, there's 300 some pages to go. And I think the second most difficult thing is dealing with rejection, because even though I have eight books published or in the works, I still have had a couple of manuscripts that got rejected. And it never gets any easier when somebody says, oh, I didn't really like that. We don't want to buy that. We don't want to publish it. Or when you get a negative critique, somebody goes onto Amazon or somewhere and says, oh, I really hated that book. It was just awful. But to do, over time, you just gain confidence that I can write good things and that a lot of people like them and that everyone has different taste, and maybe I love one book that you hate, you love one book that I don't like, and so you just learn to go, okay, that I take the criticism and I go on. But if a book gets rejected, it kind of takes a day where I go, okay, I got to get over this and go on to the next thing.
Okay, so I was wondering, you had the theme of a bee. I thought that was pretty cool how you put that in the story, like the mascot and the characters sometime. And I was wondering why you did that. That's cool though.
Oh, thank you. That is one of those things that sometimes when you write a book, it's almost like this magic happens, and you looking back, you can't really explain why you picked something. I think I named the town first. I named the town Honeywell, and then it just became logical that the football team would be called like the Stingers or something like that. And then I had this great visual of this bee mascot who gets in this, problem with the cheerleader, and the cheerleader falls over, and it just started to become this really fun theme that wove throughout the book. But it really all just started with wanting a cute name for a little Pennsylvania town, and I came up with Honeywell. But I find like something like that will always happen.
Anybody else?
Anybody else? These really are great questions.
Yep, I think so too.
My question was, why did you pick the character traits for Chase that you did?
That's a good question. I wanted Chase to be this guy who in one way was very confident because he comes from this snooty, snobby background, and let's face it, he knows he looks good and he knows he has this athletic ability. But I also wanted Chase to be very humbled inside. Like he knows he's done some bad things in his life, and I thought that would make him actually in a way more appealing to Millie, because she kind of does her own thing. She wouldn't go for the perfect guy, the snobby guy. She initially doesn't like him because she thinks he's snobby. I wanted him to also be an accessible, strong, and he's funny and handsome, but he also he's someone that you can relate to if you've ever had something bad happen to you or made a mistake. I see a hand in the very back.
Yeah, he wants to know, and I think you already said it, but how many books total have you written?
I've written 5 that are already out, and I have one that comes out next month, and then one that comes out in October, and another one coming out in 2018. So 8 total that I've written, 6 that are already published.
Why did you want to become an author? An author.
Because I had been writing for so long in different ways, like I've written hundreds of stories for newspapers, dozens of stories for magazines, and I've written a lot of speeches, and Daisy's getting comfortable. And I really just, I would walk into a bookstore and I would always think, could I do that? Could I write a novel? And it was sort of a test, really. I was writing my doctoral dissertation at the time. And I really wanted to see if I could do it more than anything. And now I just love it. It's the best part of my career. I get to travel a lot, go around the world even.
I'm sure it is really exciting. I guess the last thing that I wanted as a teacher is for you, if you have any words of advice or encouragement for young people in this day and age.
Specifically as writers, or
as a writer, or just anything that you feel like our kids should know or, you know, be inspired by?
I would say persevere in whatever dream you have. I think kids have more opportunities than ever now. Like self-publishing is a huge thing. You don't always have to wait to give you opportunities anymore. There are opportunities out there that you can kind of grab. You just need to persevere and really go after what you want. I had a summer last summer, or 2 summers ago, where I wrote this book and I loved it, and it just kept getting rejected. And you kind of want to say, maybe I've written all that I can. Maybe I've hit this point where I'm just not going to make it anymore. But I bounced back from that by working hard, and that would be my advice. Like, don't accept rejection. Just make yourself better, work harder if you really have a dream, and go after it, and it can come true.
Well, thank you so much for Skyping with us, or Hangouts, I mean, and for trying Google Hangouts, because I know that we haven't done it before either. So it worked out really great. But thank you so much, and we hope that you continue to write for young people especially, but for anybody in that matter.
I will, and if you watch my website later this year, there will be news about my upcoming book for younger people. So
awesome. Great. We'll be looking forward to that announcement. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.